Hi, John. How are you today?
I'm good, Dr. Vance. How are you today?
I'm good. Busy as usual. Well,
Good, glad to hear it.
I'd heard that you needed to talk to me a little bit, and I wanted to kind of touch base with you and kind of follow up. Tell me a little bit about what's hurting you now.
Well, because of the whole COVID-19 situation, I'm having to work from home a lot more and not able to get in. My low back has been extremely uncomfortable for me, not only at nighttime, but throughout the day. And it's also starting to give me some neck issues as well.
Okay. All right. That's your usual issue, isn't it? Am I correct?
Yeah. If you remember, I had that MRI done. I've got a disc bulge at L5S1
Okay.
in the past. But yeah, it's an area that. But I've noticed it more since I've been at home, sitting at the computer, different ergonomics than my workstation at work.
Okay. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of walk you through a little bit about where your pain could be coming from. I'm in hopes that we can kind of figure out specific muscle groups, some stretches to do, maybe even change some of the things about your ergonomics while you're at home working. So I'm going to bring up and share a screen of mine with you. So let's start from the beginning here. Just help me kind of isolate where your pain is. Do you see my picture there?
I do, yes, sir.
Okay. And can you see the different regions, how they highlight?
Yes.
Okay. Is it right or left side?
More right side.
Okay, so I'm going to select this area. Now, remember that this is bilateral symmetry, so the right side anatomy is the same as the left side. So if you see a picture on this, the purple is the pain referral, and these little icons have to do with what's called a trigger point. I'll explain that in just a moment. But if you see an area that it relates to your pain, that's almost identical to your pain, I want you to stop me, even if it's on the opposite side, if it looks like it, okay? So I'm just going to kind of roll up a little bit, and you can kind of look at these together with me. And I want you to just to kind of see which one of these seems to be the closest pattern of your pain.
Center one there in the middle.
This one right here?
Yeah.
The iliocostalis lumborum picture right here I'm circling?
Yeah.
Okay.
That one does, and actually the one above it too, but that one is a
Okay.
big one.
So this one right here, iliopsoas too?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start with this, see if that kind of makes sense to a little bit about your pattern of pain. So you see the purple there, that is actually the referral pattern of the trigger point. The trigger point's the icon that's right here in the middle for it. So that icon causes that purple pain referral that you're generating. So we're going to look at some different things. First off is when you get back and we can get you back into the office, we want to make sure and check a little bit of the nerve levels, or check the nerve levels that go to this muscle group. But here's the anatomy. So my first question to you is, are you seated and slumping? Are you in front of a computer quite a bit? Do you recline?
Yeah.
Okay. So that stretches this muscle group. They're like almost straps that hold your posture, your thoracic cage, from going backwards. So a slouched position or a reclined position is actually going to irritate that. And that trigger point is going to be about right here in that muscle group. So you see there's different nerve levels that innervate that. We want to check that as soon as we can get you into the office to be able to see that. But I'm going to give you some relief stretches right off the bat today based upon that muscle alone. So here you have the stretch that I want you to perform at home. It's pretty simple. You just lean over to the side. You don't require the bar up there. That's just a way to kind of show you how to maximally stretch it over and quickly identify that. But leaning over to the side, and you hold it for about 20 seconds, and you'd repeat 3 times, and I'd encourage you to do both sides.
Okay.
Also, if you feel flexible enough, you can do a toe touch, or you can even do it standing to be able to do a toe touch, kind of what the old hamstring stretch would be. And you can hold that if you can for 30 seconds. That one, if you're in a lot of pain, I don't think that's going to be the easiest one.
I'm not quite sure. I've been able to do that for many years, Doc.
Okay, fair enough.
Pretty flexible, it looks like.
Fair enough. So one of the things you can do is this one right here, which is actually a cat back stretch. So you're arching the back, trying to stretch that muscle group that's in the posterior aspect there, that backside strap muscle. And then you do again 30 seconds. You can let your stomach hang and then arch it back again like a cat, like the term cat back. And then I want you to look at the ways of kind of how you sit in front of your computer. And I want you to look at this picture here. You notice that she's sitting upright, her eye levels with the screen. If you have a laptop, this is a sneaky trick that I use for mine, is that I have a little reader stand that I put it in, and I have a USB mouse and keyboard to allow me to keep straight on so that I don't hunch over a laptop, because that's problematic. I also want to take that pressure off, take the pressure off of those that muscle group just by sitting with something between your shoulders, about where a brawl line would be from the chair forward. So one of the culprits of straining this muscle is actually in a reclined position. So if you sit with your in a recliner, stretch your feet out, I do expect that it's going to strain that over and over again. And then here is a good way to take tension off as a passive stretch, where you're laying on the floor with a ball mid-back. This would be an excellent way to get some relief. So if you notice your back's really bothering you, this would be a very good scenario. I also would encourage you to do some icing. Icing is one of my favorite therapies for people, and you can sit in ice and just put it back there in the middle of the back, where you saw that little icon way up here. That's about where you want to put the ice pack when you do that. And I usually tell people to do 20 minutes once an hour and repeat it 3 times, and they have a notable improvement by the next day after they sleep. Okay. So some things I want you to also consider is what might strain that muscle group. So I want you to just look at these pictures kind of as cues that have a potential that will irritate that muscle. And so if you sit and hunch forward and do any type of work on the floor, or if you're positioned like you put your laptop and you're just having it down on a lower surface like that, that's going to strain the muscles in the back there, as well as possibly with carrying a backpack if it's pulling you back too far forward. And this can also give you neck complaints, because you'd mentioned that it does seem to trigger some neck stiffness or discomfort with that, and I'm going to cover that in just a minute. If you're driving, I know you're kind of locked up right now with a stay-at-home order, but if you are driving, one of the things you want to make sure is to not recline backwards in your vehicle, because that's going to cause the head to go forward and to strain it. And if you remember from the muscles that I showed you here, they go all the way up here to the neck, and they start all the way down at the tailbone. So we want to try and make sure and take all the tension off of that as much as we can. Unless you need relief, then we can stretch through that. Now, a recliner is a bad position for this muscle in general, because it causes the tailbone to kind of tuck under, as well as the head going forward, which will trigger it, as well as leaning over a desk. And you're probably doing a lot of this now because you're having to either write or work on a computer at home. But I also want you to pay close attention that you're not leaning to one side more than the other. So for instance, you can strain one side of the iliocostalis, or train your body to actually have a shifted posture because of leaning to one side of an armrest or a couch, or the chair itself, the armrest of the chair, or even your console in your vehicle. If you're leaning to a side like that, it does cause the spine to conform to that position, and then it gives you an imbalance of musculature. It can be one of the actual causes of that. If you're carrying anything like with a side satchel, you want to also know that will strain one side of muscle group, and we term that as body weighting, where you can actually put a bag on one side and it'll pull you over to one side and cause the toning of that group that it's straining. So you want to be careful of some of those things. Now, sleeping patterns. When you sleep, you want to make sure that your spine maintains a straight position. This is the best thing you can do. Sometimes you have to put a little bolster underneath your lower back to keep it from dipping down. If your bed is older, one of the things is that potentially could cause you to have a position where your spine will actually have a curve in it while you're laying there, just because of the bow in the bed. So if you wonder if it is your bed that's causing it, you can always sleep in a different bed in your house. I'm not encouraging you to get in trouble with your wife to have to be moved. But from that standpoint, is that it could be that you notice a little bit more relief when you're sleeping in a different bed. And then here is another position. If you like to rest in bed, make sure you're not propped up, because that will cause a strain to one side of the iliocostalis lumborum muscle. Okay? So make sure when you're at home that you keep your spine upright and not in a slouched position. I want to make sure you kind of hit that home, because nowadays that is an epidemic, especially for people that work at a desk anyways. Even more so now as more people are forced to work from home. So here's a good position. Don't lean forward to strain it. Don't recline backwards to strain that. Okay? So I'm going to actually print these out, and I'll, if you'll give me your email address, unless I've got it on file, I can go ahead and send this to you. And that way you can kind of be reminded of some of the exercises to do, and that's what we're going to kind of send to you.
Okay,
Now,
that'd be perfect to go girls should have my email on the account.
Perfect.
Because that's how I got the invite for today. So.
Okay, no worries. So what we'll do is I'm going to show you another muscle that's pertinent to this one, and it could be. Are you getting headaches at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Do you have any?
Right at the base of my skull.
Okay. Back of the skull. Do you ever get any temple headaches or anything like that?
Rare.
Okay.
Usually it's more back of the head.
Okay. So let's look at headaches real quick, because I think we can kind of figure out why that would correlate, because the muscles attach at different levels, but they run all the way up from the tailbone to the back of the skull. So I'm gonna kind of bring up a picture here, and you just tell me, is it about right here?
Yeah, right in that area.
Okay. So I want you to look at my pictures here and see if there's any of them that look similar to your pattern of pain in your neck and head.
Mostly the top one, but it's more when you go to the upper right.
This one?
I notice it more on the two pictures below, but not so much the one from her on the side.
Okay. So let's pull this one up. This is a trapezius referral, and a trapezius can have multiple trigger points. It's this large muscle, and you've probably seen this on your shoulder up here, that muscle, that definition there. That's that muscle group, and it's notorious when your head goes forward. So having a forward posture of the head, like looking down at a screen, or another one is looking at a smartphone or a device like that, that's an epidemic, and this is one of the key components in what's called tech neck. So one of the things is that we want to add this stretch then too, and I'll email this one with it. If you notice that she's stretching this side when she looks to the left and down, and you would want to do both sides to get a maximum stretch of that. Okay? So to get the lower areas, you could bring your arms forward to strain that lower portion, or stretch that lower portion of the trapezius muscle. And again, it's a 20-second stretch. You repeat it 3 times. Usually I tell people to do it 3 times a day, or as needed if you notice that it's irritated. But you can again do icing on any of these areas. You can see they're pretty close to being on those. So if you notice that there's some tension on theirs, or a tough spot that seems to be tender, that's where I would prefer you put the ice pack on it for about 20 minutes again. Okay. Now, this is the stretch for the opposing musculature of the SCM. I included that because if your muscles in your neck are shortened in the flexors looking down, that this could be part of the tug of war that causes that the backside muscles to be strained in neutral position. So this is one of the key factors that also causes things like sinus pain. And if you've ever been diagnosed with sinus issues, that is the common referral with the SCM. So a corner stretch helps to open your posture, and make sure you keep your neck retracted for me, and because that's going to help to take some of the tension off, and it'll stretch that SCM muscle in the front. Now, some things that I want you to look at this one has to do with what not to do. Is you can see on this picture here, looking down at a phone, this is what we call tech neck or text neck, is that you want to make sure and elevate your smartphone. If you get your phone, you want to make sure and have it up higher when you're doing any of those types of activities, because it will give tension relief off that trapezius muscle and also potentially the iliocostalis lumborum muscle. Make sure you're not lurching forward in your chair. Make sure you're elevated with your workstation to about eye level again. And then again, you notice that many of these are similar to what you had seen on the iliocostalis lumborum muscle because they correlate together. Okay? So one good one that wasn't on there is laying in bed with your laptop doing work that way is probably a no-go right now, at least until you start feeling better, and it potentially can cause some strain to that. And this, if you really want to do a little bit more diligence about some exercises with that, there's an exercise that we'll kind of talk about with forward head posturing. And this is the position of a forward head. And so we want to take and again put these things in there to keep that comfortable. But this picture right here is retraction. So we want to take from the side. We want to try and retract your head backwards, looking up slightly in extension. Okay, can you show me that? I want to make sure you get that one right. So there you go. That's very good. Very good. Okay, so that one you want to hold for about anywhere from 15 seconds to 20 seconds, and then you'll do it maybe 3 reps to start with in a set, and then you work up to 10 reps in a set, and you want to try to do that 3 to 10 times a day. So the more we can actually do that, one of the things that you can do is start to condition the trapezius muscle in the back for that. Okay? So, any questions about that?
Nope, that's pretty straightforward. Thank you.
Okay. So, John, what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow up with you in a week. Let's see how you've started to respond with those things. If you have any questions, just feel free to contact my office, and we'll set up another another virtual visit if you want to. But before we go, would you? I want you to do this stretch with me. I want you to make sure you're leaning over. There you go, and you would hold that for about 15 to 20 seconds. Okay. There you go. You're doing great. And you do the same thing. I do encourage you to do both sides just so that there's symmetry with that. That does help us to be able to get the best results. Okay? And then work on identifying things in your daily activities that seem to be a trigger, because it's a tug of war. And if we can take other people off of the other side that's pulling in the wrong direction, we can actually get better results, which is the reason why I wanted to touch base with you. Okay?
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to get in touch with me about this. And
you bet.
I couldn't get into the office, so
you bet. You bet. Okay. Thanks, John. Have a great day.
Thanks, Doc. I appreciate it. You too.